Welcome to Dish and Nutrition Podcast, where we dish on trending nutrition topics, all the while making it easy and fun to understand. I'm your host, Sarah Williams. I am riding solo today, folks. Emma is OOO. She is out of office. She's feeling a little bit under the weather, just thanks to the change of season in Texas. Thanks, Texas, for taking my co-host. Let's send her well wishes, good vibes, prayers to help her recover and hopefully have her back on next week to join us in on the nutrition banter. But for this week, you get me and my olive train of thoughts. So best of luck, and let's hope that this episode goes semi-okay. But this week, we are talking about the Mediterranean diet. Man, I love the Mediterranean diet, and I don't know if it's the dietitian in me. Maybe it's just me loving where the diet originated from. I don't know. I just know that I love this pattern of eating more than life itself, basically. It's been consistently ranked as one of the most health-promoting diets in the world, and it's for good reason, too. And it is the epitome of a well-balanced diet, and it's something that I always reference to when clients, people, friends, just anyone asks me to reference what does a well-balanced diet look like. I'm always referencing the Mediterranean diet, so I'm really excited to talk about it today, and I think we should just get into it. Let's do this. The Mediterranean diet. I don't love that it has the word diet in it, because it does sound like it's put into a box like the carnivore diet or the keto diet. It's not a single diet, but it's rather an eating pattern that takes inspiration from the diet of Southern European countries that emphasizes plant foods, olive oil, fish, beans, and grains, all those health-promoting foods, which we all know those foods have years and years of scientific research that have health-promoting effects on the body. And this diet or dietary pattern, all thrown together, a dietitian's dream. I actually did a presentation / had an entire focus on this dietary pattern during my community rotation during my dietetic internship. So I do have a very large heart for the Mediterranean diet. And during that presentation, I had 2 recipes that were just examples of the Mediterranean diet. And I'm going to link those on our Dish and Nutrition Instagram. That will be available once this post is live or this podcast is live. So be sure to check that out, because it is chef's kiss. I still use those recipes to this day, and they're fantastic. Just a little shameless plug for our Dish and Nutrition Instagram. The origins of the Mediterranean diet are actually lost in time, because they cannot be traced to a specific pinpoint of time, because they can be traced back to eating habits of the Middle Ages. So who knows how far back it could actually go. Some of the first scientific investigation into the Mediterranean diet took place in 1948 by the government of Greece to improve population health post-World War II. So we can kind of pinpoint that in terms of scientific research and investigation. The name Mediterranean diet can't be pinpointed to one specific region, because it's a common eating pattern found in Greece, Spain, southern France, Portugal, and Italy. So all of those surrounding countries. So it's just culminated into one term, Mediterranean diet. So very quick overview. Just the origin of Mediterranean diet, nothing earth-shattering. But let's talk about the overview of the diet. I feel like it seems overwhelming at first, but it's really not. I have broken it down into 9 parts, which sounds like a lot, but it's really not when you get into it day to day. All right, so the very first part of this diet is, number 1, the high consumption of monounsaturated fat. For example, this is going to be olive oil, avocados, avocado oil, even canola oil, which goes against the mainstream social media things that you're seeing on, social media. Monounsaturated fat is a type of dietary fat that can help lower that LDL cholesterol level in the blood. LDL is your bad cholesterol. Keeping that LDL cholesterol level low can help reduce that risk for heart disease and stroke. So monounsaturated fat can help develop and maintain the integrity of your cells as well. Just as a fun fact, I remember LDL as being bad because it sounds like LDL, like El Diablo, like bad. So it's very common to just throw olive oil onto a lot of things. Like they'll use olive oil as just a salad dressing. They'll use olive oil as a dipping thing for bread. They use olive oil in so much. If you're someone who likes to cook and you're using things at a higher temperature, I recommend avocado oil just for that smoke point, but I still recommend olive oil or avocado oil when you're cooking. Number 2 of the Mediterranean diet. This one is a little bit kind of controversial, but it still is part of the Mediterranean diet and very much part of those Mediterranean cultures. Regular and moderate consumption of alcohol, specifically red wines. Now, this is not an excuse for you to get off work and go take tequila shots. Now, specifically, if you are a woman, moderate consumption means less than 1 5-ounce glass of red wine per day. If you are a man, moderate consumption is less than 2 5-ounce glasses of red wine per day. Drinking over this consumption can result in increase of some cancers. Now, health practitioners are obviously divided on this because there is so many scientific research studies that link any and all intake of alcohol linked to cancers. So there is really no safe recommendation of alcohol. So let's break down why it would even be somewhat recommended in the Mediterranean diet. So the quote unquote benefit of drinking red wine is the resveratrol, which is a phytochemical found in grape skins produced by grapes to fight off fungus, but it's beneficial to humans and it helps inflammation and is just overall beneficial for our bodies. However, alcohol as a whole, including red wine, increases risk for several common cancers. So it's best to avoid or limit alcohol to no more than that one standard drink, which is what I just listed. 1 for women, 2 for men. There's a lot more negative studies surrounding alcohol than positive. So this is kind of dicey. So this is where you choose what's best for you and your body. If you're adhering to that recommendation of 5 ounces one day, whatever, and if it makes you happy and you're not at risk for any other conditions or diseases, it's most likely fine. But this is a very, 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 very personal decision. And however, it would be a disservice to the Mediterranean diet. Following the Mediterranean diet, it's very common to see a consumption of 5-ounce glass of red wine over in the Mediterranean area. And in those cultures, it's very common to see red wine consumption at this rate. So as a dietitian, it is my responsibility and ethical responsibility to state that alcohol in and of itself is a actual toxin, and the risks definitely do not outweigh the benefits. However, it is part of the Mediterranean diet in a very monitored and measured amount. So if this is part of the Mediterranean diet that you want to follow, then you absolutely can. However, please adhere to whatever your doctor dietitian adheres for you and your personal medical history. It's just part of the Mediterranean diet, and it would have been a disservice to not mention the red wine consumption as part of the diet. And I do want to add, if you do want to follow this health pattern, you will still see health benefits regardless if you choose to drink wine or not. That's still a completely personal decision, but you will still see health benefits regardless. But moving on from alcohol, number 3, a high consumption of legumes, nuts, and seeds. So this is an example of beans, peas, lentils, peanuts, almonds, pecans, and walnuts. So a diet rich in these can provide a good amount of fiber and other vitamins and minerals for the body. They're also free of saturated fat, so that's fantastic. And they keep you fuller for longer. Great to snack on. Emma might kill me for this, but I walked in on her one time and she was just eating a whole bowl of peas. And I was like, not for me, but I love this as a dietitian that you're just eating a bowl of peas, and fantastic for you. Again, not for me. Wouldn't want that for me, for my palate, but I love this for you. Number 4, high consumption of non-refined cereals and breads. Example, popcorn. Yes, popcorn, not movie theater popcorn. I'm talking about like just regular popcorn. Hey, if you want to put on some nutritional yeast and a little bit of salt, I love that as a snack. That is some fiber. I love it. B vitamins, antioxidants, fantastic. You got some quinoa, oatmeal, whole grain bread, whole grain pasta, bran flakes. They're all packed with fiber, B vitamins, and antioxidants, like I just said. Fantastic. We love that. I feel like, I don't want to say common sense, but that is part of the Mediterranean diet pattern, are whole grains. Number 5 and 6, I'm just going to do these quickly. High consumption of fruits and then high consumption of vegetables. I'm not going to go into that because we all know to eat our fruits and vegetables. And I do feel like that one is overstated and obviously oversaturated into recommendations. But I feel like it can't be stated enough. And I do feel like people think, oh, well, I have to eat my veggies. There are different ways to make your veggies. You can air fry, you can saute, you can eat them raw, you can blend them. For all I care, I don't care how you get them in. I just want you to get them in. The more colorful the plate. Play vegetable bingo for all I care if that's how you get in your veggies. What's important is you're just getting in your veggies. But this is a very high component of the Mediterranean diet. Now to number 7. Low to moderate consumption of dairy products. Now, this is not a total elimination of dairy products. Now, you don't have to give up your cheese completely, but more so having just a moderate intake of it. However, there was a new study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition that makes the case that the Mediterranean diet can be supplemented with an additional dairy to meet that calcium need while providing the hallmark health benefits that the diet is known for. Now, this is not stating that you can just go out and drink your queso, but stating like, hey, you can have maybe some glasses of milk or, having a little bit of cheese and things like that. Maybe throwing in some cottage cheese and other sources of calcium in there and dairy products. That could fulfill that calcium need and also still fulfill that calcium want in your palate. And number 8, low to moderate consumption of meat and poultry, specifically more so red meat. You can still have poultry and you can still have red meat. This is just low to moderate. This is not completely an elimination of anything. It's just reducing. The foundation of the Mediterranean diet is veggies, fruits, herbs, nuts, beans, and whole grains. These meals are built around these plant-based foods, and then they limit the consumption of meat, but it does not eliminate. But this does not include fish. And then number 9, moderate to high consumption of fish. So fish contain those omega-3 fatty acids that are thought to act against inflammation. I have talked about this many a times. We love omega-3 fatty acids. They're important for several functions in the body, and they're known to lower blood pressure, reduce triglycerides, and slow the development of plaque in the arteries, which is very, very important for cardiovascular risks. So now that I said the guidelines, parameters, whatever you want to call it, of the Mediterranean diet, it's not scary at all, right? If you think about it, at least one of the 9 you implement in your life, I would like to say. At least one. And if not, well, try to implement at least one. And if you're so scared and if you want to try the Mediterranean diet, but you have no idea how, and you're just like, Sarah, I want to start promoting my health. How do I do that? Well, this part of the podcast is for you. Okay. I'm going to help you and we're going to get started together. Here's how I labeled this section of the podcast: how to get started with the Mediterranean diet. Fortunately, it's one of the most flexible and enjoyable eating patterns to adopt. So let's talk about a few simple tips to help you get started. And it's not scary, and hopefully it's easy to adhere by. So tip number 1, all you're going to do is transition to using olive oil or avocado oil as your primary fat. So if you're cooking or drizzling over salads, or even you're dipping your bread, you're going to just switch to olive oil or avocado oil. That's it. That's all you got to do. Simple enough. That's just a grocery store fix. And then once that's all that's in your cabinet, we can go ahead and make that switch. Number 2, add more seafood into your weekly menu. I realize not a lot of people like, salmon or things like that. So you can include just fatty fish. I said salmon, but sardines or maybe mackerel. Try at least once a week, maybe bump it up to twice a week. Those are great sources of omega-3 fatty acids and which have great anti-inflammatory properties. Just increasing it little by little is going to help you increase those health benefits. Tip number 3, all you're going to do when you're making a plate, try to make the plate. This one is a little bit more doctor office-y, like when you're at a doctor's office and you have a pamphlet, but just hear me out. Fill your plate with a variety of colors. See how many colors you can get. That's all it is. You can roast them, saute them in olive oil, enjoy them raw in salads. Like the more the variety, the better. That's all you got to do. Just try to fill your plate as big as you can get it, like with veggies. That's all I'm asking you to do. This is just tip number 3, okay? Tip number 4, choose whole grains. Now, I know when I say opt for whole grains, there is a different taste. And I, too, am a victim of the taste of whole grains. I actually do not prefer the taste of whole grain pasta versus regular pasta, obviously. So my hack, or whatever you want to call it, tip, I like to make a half box of regular pasta and a half box of whole grain pasta, and I'll make both. That way I'm getting a little bit of flavor from both, and I'm still getting the benefit of whole grain pasta as well. And then the more time goes on, you can add a little bit of more whole grain as your palate gets used to it. I get it. You have to get used to it. It's not something that comes natural to a lot of people. Try it out, ease into it, and then do the same thought process with bread. Do your regular bread and then buy whole grain bread. Do the top bread for your sandwich as regular and then do the bottom with whole grain. And then, maybe make one sandwich a day with whole grain and then the other with not. Just try to switch it out. Try to ease into it. Don't go full force because your palate is not going to like it as much. So just ease into it if obviously financial abilities allow you to. And then the last tip is to eat mindfully and socially. So one of the most often overlooked aspects of the Mediterranean diet is the emphasis of mindful eating and social experience of sharing meals with loved ones. Over in the Mediterranean area culture, they very much take time to be with people and share social experience with people. They take the time to savor their food, eat slowly, and enjoy the company of the others. So that's what I challenge you to do while you're undertaking this new dietary pattern as well. Now, that's probably the hardest tip. I'm still taking that tip underneath my belt as well. I still struggle with it. I'll probably still struggle with it until the day I die, and I don't take it flippantly as much as I say it. It is a battle every single day. I struggle with, savoring my food, eating slowly, enjoying the company of others. I struggle with being off my phone when I eat. I struggle with having the TV off when I eat. Those are things that I mean as well when I say being mindful and being present when you eat. It doesn't have to be just with others because we're not always with people when we eat. It's being just present with your food. And that is a large variable of the Mediterranean diet, is being with your food mindfully as well. But I kind of wanted to segue and talk about why, no pun intended, why the Mediterranean diet is kind of close to my heart. I've talked about this before, but I do have a heart condition. It is an electrical problem. It has nothing to do with dietary reasons. It is an electrical system. I could have a heart transplant and I would still have the same electrical system problem. But that does not mean dietary choices do not have an impact on, obviously my heart health. So I am very observant and very aware of choices of heart health recommendations and things like that. So I have always had an appreciation for heart health and things like that. So when I was in my dietetic internship and I had the option to focus on the Mediterranean diet during my community rotation, I learned some very horrendous facts actually about cardiovascular disease. And one person dies every 36 seconds in the United States from cardiovascular disease. And that is absolutely horrendous. Just absolutely horrendous. And I didn't think anything about it until I sat down and for 2 minutes and I was like, oh, so like a couple people died and that's not okay due to cardiovascular disease, which could have been prevented due to a lot of them due to dietary choices, at least in the Western side of the world. And heart disease has been estimated to cost the United States about $219 billion with a B each year from 2014. And this includes healthcare services, medicines, etc. And currently there are about 18 million adults, which are about age 20 or older, that have coronary artery disease. Those stats just really jarred me when I was in my community rotation, as well as obviously my history with heart issues. So how can we lower these numbers? And obviously the Mediterranean diet has a long history of scientific evidence behind it with regard of lowering coronary artery disease. But don't take my word for it. Let's talk about the research. I'm going to talk about 3 studies. 2 of the studies are basically the foundational studies that really advocate for why the Mediterranean diet is such a wonderful diet to recommend, specifically for people who have heart issues, but for just people who want to promote their health. But I'm talking in specifics of heart health issues. So the first study I'm going to talk about is the PREDIMED study. It was a large, long clinical trial conducted in Spain from 2003 to 2011. It investigated the effects of the Mediterranean diet on cardiovascular disease. Over 7,000 participants at high cardiovascular risk were assigned to one of 3 groups, okay? A Mediterranean diet supplemented with extra virgin olive oil, a Mediterranean diet supplemented with mixed nuts, or a control group on just a low-fat diet. So the results showed that both Mediterranean diet groups had a 30% reduction in the risk of major cardiovascular events such as heart attacks, strokes, and cardiovascular death compared to the control group. 30%. That is absolutely insane. And then we have the Lion Diet study. So this study included over 600 participants who had previously experienced a heart attack. They were split into 2 groups. One followed a Mediterranean diet rich in olive oil, fruits, veggies, and fish, while the control group followed a standard Western diet. The results showed a 72% reduction in heart attacks and cardiovascular deaths in the Mediterranean diet group compared to the control group. The study group strongly supported the benefits of this dietary pattern for heart health, especially for those with existing heart disease. Now, those studies have been well over many years, and you may be like, Sarah, where is your scientific integrity? Where's the most recent research? I agree. However, there is a new study per May 2024, and I did not want to pay the $20 to get into it. So I just read the synopsis, and I am being very clear about that. I have not read into the exact research of it. So I am saying this with a grain of salt. So if you do want to go into the actual research article, and you can pay the $20 if you want to. I did not want to pay the $20. But this is per May 2024. It sounds promising, and it does sound like a very well-tracked research. I seem hopeful, or I feel hopeful regarding it, but if you want to look further into it and pick it apart, absolutely go for it. So this study tracked more than 25,000 women for up to 25 years. So definitely long-term, very large group. Those who closely followed the Mediterranean diet had up to a 23% lower risk of dying from any cause during the study period. Researchers analyzed 33 biomarkers associated with different metabolic pathways and risk factors linked to heart disease. Their findings suggest that the diet helps lower BMI, inflammation, triglyceride-rich lipoproteins, and insulin resistance. Those changes appeared to contribute to the improved longevity seen in the women who most closely followed the Mediterranean diet, according to the study authors. Again, this is a new study per May 2024, so literally a few months ago. So that is extremely exciting, very long-term. Biomarkers, I love to see that those were assessed. Just amazing. I have only seen positive effects, positive research from Mediterranean diet, and anyone who has ever asked me, what's the perfect diet? And obviously I'm like, whatever one works for you, but I almost, if someone is put me in a corner and is like, no, literally name one, I always say the Mediterranean diet because it's the most flexible. It's the most fluid. It's not one in the box. You can have whatever you want on it because it's basically like low to moderate to high. Like you make up your rules within these guidelines, if that makes sense. The Mediterranean diet is more than just, a healthy eating plan. It's an actual lifestyle that promotes long-term well-being, heart health, and even longevity. It's flexible, it's sustainable, and it's backed by decades of scientific research. And it's really good. Like it has really good, like the 2 recipes that I'm going to be posting on our Dish and Nutrition Instagram. If you make them, you will be like, oh, okay, I could follow this. Like it's so good. Like I cannot convey to you how great this dietary pattern is. From fresh fruits and veggies to like rich olive oil and like hearty whole grains, like the Mediterranean diet is it's a celebration, honestly, of good food and good health. And I feel like that's a good example of culture as well. So if you're looking for a balanced, enjoyable way to eat that doesn't involve, strict rules, like you can't do this, you can't eat after this time, don't you dare pick up that cupcake, so if you're looking for a balanced, enjoyable way to eat that doesn't involve like strict rules or restrictions, like the Mediterranean diet, it's perfect for you, honestly. And remember, the small, consistent changes are the key to long-term success. So don't feel like you have to like overhaul your diet overnight. Those key, simple tips that I talked about earlier in the episode, don't feel like you have to do that like overnight. Do one week, do another the next week. However long you feel fit, this is your journey. Do it as long as you feel fit. Don't do it overnight. That is how you're going to fail. Number 1, if you do it fast, you're going to fail. Fail fast. That's how to fail fast, basically, if you do it too fast. Honestly, this is the only time you're going to hear me advocate for something that has the word diet in it, and it's just because it's quicker than saying dietary pattern. This is a very dietitian-y episode of me, but again, there's just years and years of scientific evidence that back this dietary pattern. And again, heart health is very special to me for many reasons. For other reasons, not just of my own, like my father also had some heart health reasons too. And that was another reason why I chose the focus on my community rotation as well. And it's a great way of eating, and also just keeps you mindful of life, and it keeps you in the moment as well. It keeps you connected to your food and your life around you. And I think that's a great way to live. Man, who knew? If there was a big Mediterranean diet, I would be number 1 getting stock in whatever money they had. Basically, yeah, that's all I had for this episode. Just 30 minutes of me rambling about food, and that's how it should be on Dish and Nutrition. But if you have a topic you want us to talk about, you can just go to Dish and Nutrition Podcast on our Instagram. Just go to the highlight reel, and you can click in the little box, and we'll look at it going forward. But I guess with that, you've been dished.